And this book, I really recommend.
I read it. I second the recommendation.
Why do you recommend it?
Because it has lots of good advice, and it's not so prescriptive, and it doesn't, what you do well is you're not going like, well, when I was doing this, and now this lesson applies to everyone. VCs do that. It's notoriously horrible because like standard advice from one data point is usually rubbish. So you have not fallen into that trap, which is great.
Thank you very much. I also know from past experience as an active business leader, the last thing you need is some old geezer from the sideline, okay, telling you what to do. I also do not believe, as the title of the book suggests, that you can actually transfer your experience, because experience by definition is unique. Everybody here experiences this DLD differently. But what you can do is you can actually accelerate somebody else's experience. And in today's world, speed matters, and experience is crucial, with one caveat, and I don't want to talk too long here, but you got to be aware that experience can be obsolete. So, experience is basically a raw material. It needs to be worked on, it needs to be refined, but you need to be very careful of how you do that.
I think that's very true. Just for a data point, like it took Instagram, I think, 2 years to get to 100 million users. It took ChatGPT 2 months. That speed is just insane. I've been in the tech industry forever and ever, and I've not seen anything that comes close to this. It's like on the order of the steam engine or electricity. And the speed of adoption is really amazing. Because like, when Netscape, the first browser came out, there were only 50 million people on the internet, and they were on dial-up connections. So you had to go home and load up your modem, right? And then we had the iPhone moment, right? And now everybody is wired. We're like, I don't know how many billion people, right? And everybody can consume the technology. And when you have this fantastic of a breakthrough, you see that people are flocking to it, which is why I was so excited to see the founder of Quant here. I think if Europe has another 200 of those, your problem will be solved.
So, if I may, you are, of course, very well known for having coined the term "software eats the world."
Yes, it's an essay that my co-founder, like one of the two co-founders wrote, and I think he wrote it, I want to say 2012, and the theory behind it is that basically increasingly every sector will be dominated by whoever's best at the software, and that has been played out systematically. So if you look at the Tesla, they have incredible software, right? And if you look at the comparative other companies, they just do not. They have car talk, and that's a piece of shit. And then if you look at Netflix, leading entertainment company, that is a software company. And you just see this, you look at Uber, right? Like I remember a time when people tried to sell software to taxi companies, which was never adopted and was clunky and all of that. And then Uber just did what we call full stack, and so like, we're just gonna give you the entire experience. That is largely driven by software. So software is eating the world is sort of the investment thesis against which the firms invest, and it's, I think it's really proven out to be quite accurate.
So let's make this a little bit more challenging.
Great.
We live in a world where AI is writing its own software. Is this a time of the renaissance of hardware? We're living at a time where the US is very busy trying to reindustrialize and having a hard time to compete with the engineering state of China. We live in a world where defense companies are starting to become very relevant, and not to negate the importance of software in modern warfare. Without hardware, there's nothing.
Well, if you take Andrew,
so
that's a software company.
We have a new slogan. I have a new slogan for you.
Oh, good.
Hardware beats the world. How's that? No?
Vociferously would disagree. I think the magic that makes Andrew work, for example, this is the defense company that has drones and this and that, it is the software that defines it. Hardware and components are very important, and of course we have supply chain issues, right, which we need to figure out quite urgently. But the magic of the user experience, of the power of the technology, if you'd send an autonomous drone into a building, which is the most dangerous moment for a soldier or police officer, that is the software that's making that work, right? And then the hardware component, they're important, but they're not as hard to figure out, I would argue. Now, I think with AI, I think hardware could experience a renaissance. We used to say our slogan on the hardware front was hardware is hard. So we did a few investments, and then it was like, this is hard because the supply chain is competing with large vendors like Samsung or Apple or whatever. It's just really hard to get in. Now, since we're reshoring manufacturing, that might create a great hardware opportunity, right? But I think the thesis of software is eating the world, and I don't want to be stubborn about it. It is the software that is the magical ingredient in all of that.
Okay, it was worth a try. Hardware beats the world. I thought that was a good one. But let's maybe, if I may, what I tried to do in the book, as I said, is not give advice, but share observations. And one of the observations that I think is the single most important one in the context also of some of the discussions that we've heard before is what I call the illusion of satisfactory underperformance. I would argue that humans, but also institutions, have a tendency of viewing their performance as quite satisfactory, as long as it's better than last year's performance.
Exactly.
Or the one of the immediate colleague or competitor.
I think
But
go ahead.
the important point, though, is that if it is really an underperformance relative to the inherent potential, very often does not get discovered. And I would argue in Europe, maybe particularly in Germany, we have lived in the illusion of satisfactory underperformance for way too long.
I totally agree with you. It's, I think by far the most profound observation that you make is like, I think what we need to do here is, bluntly, we need like an attitude change. We need really to scale the ambition of what you're after. And like, one of the weirdest ideas that I've heard, and not to be negative, but it was like, we need a European social network. I have my social graph in 3 different places. I'm not gonna go just because it's European. That's just not a good reason. Like, it makes no sense. People are like free shit and have to grow their viral graph, right? So I think what I would encourage people who are in the position to do it, go do a field trip to San Francisco right now. It will amaze you just to sit in a coffee shop and listen to what people are talking. They're not talking about energy shortages. They're working on fixing it. They're not talking about regulation because they have government affairs offices that are like, if you don't let us compete, China will win. And like I would say, and I'm not sure, I haven't heard this morning, AI is geopolitics. Like for the free democratic world, it really, really matters that the free and democratic world win this war, because there are going to be thoughts in the Chinese LLMs that just don't exist because free speech is not a thing. So I think it's just so urgent that we win and that we stay competitive in AI. And I think that European has a lot of strengths. It has talent, it has incredible universities, it has apparently the Bavarian ministers, like seems totally normal and encouraging. What it needs to do is it needs to realize who it's competing with, which is the best in the world, not your competitor in Stuttgart or Cologne or whatever, right? And it needs to have, needs to remove the chokehold on regulation. And along those lines, I don't want to go on too long, but I think along those lines, Europe has an opportunity. Obviously, our politics are like very polarizing and polarized, and like everybody immediately goes to their camps and fights over everything. If Europe or an individual country like Germany said, like, listen, if you want to work on X, pick your tech sector. We're going to remove all the regulation. We're actually only going to regulate something when it's actually worth looking at, because you don't have tech companies to regulate right now. I know there's Black Forest Labs, and we're an investor, we're very proud of that, and same with Mistral, but like at scale, it just doesn't exist. So why focus so strongly on regulating something and putting it in a stranglehold? And then lastly, I'll shut up now. There are many, many laws on the books. You're not allowed to commit murder, you're not allowed to burn somebody's house, whether AI told you how to do it or not. Like there are many, many laws on the books that I think protect the citizenry and protect law and order and all of that. So I wouldn't go overboard.
Well, at the end of, we talked about this before, but Karl Popper once said that optimism is a moral duty.
Yeah.
So I think particularly leaders have a moral duty to be optimistic. Now, optimism on its own is just an attitude. You need it to be followed up by action. You need, but for that, you need confidence and not cynicism. And I think the problem that we have is there's a lot of cynicism around. So if I want to make an optimistic case for Europe, here's one. For the first time in human history, work travels to where people want to live. Work comes to you, thanks to digitalization. People always had to move to where work was. Now it's coming to you. Therefore, quality of life is a huge competitive factor. And if we have anything over here, it's quality of life. We just need to do two things. And if politics would just focus on those two things in order to actually protect that quality of life, I think we all would be very well off. The two things are security and prosperity. Mm-hmm. We need internal and external security, and we need growth.
We need jobs, yeah.
We need jobs, we need growth.
We need jobs. This is why California, I'm going to swear for the third time. I'll try to stop after. California is kind of like a shitty boyfriend, really, really hot, and therefore gets away with a lot of stuff because it's gorgeous, and it has great university, and it has an ingredient that I have not come across in Europe as much. And I grew up in Germany. I'm a very proud German passport holder, all the preambles. But it has this irrepressible optimism, and it's exactly to your point, right? It assumes that something is not verboten. It assumes that you should succeed. It assumes that ambition is good. It also, very importantly, assumes and acts that way. If you fail at a company, it's fine. Like, it's the having the audaciousness to try that really matters. Like, if you look at, say, Travis Kalanick, the CEO at Uber, right? This was his fourth company. Nobody in my world bats an eyelash. Like, we might ask, like, okay, so what have you learned from this? But we like people trying things, and what we always ask ourselves is not what are the problems are, not what the energy consumption. Somebody is working on that, right? And it'll improve. What we ask ourselves when we make investment decisions is like, what if it works? Like, Airbnb is a good example, right? Like, are people really going to stay in each other's bedrooms while I'm at the, like, that's weird. If it works, it's the largest hospitality companies that does not have to run inventory. So that's the right question to ask. Like, everybody try things, and then if it works, how far can it go? And I would argue, I've heard a lot about there's no money. The firm that I'm leaving raised $15 billion yesterday. We have made investments in Europe. We would be so thrilled to do more, but we don't feel like the regulatory environment and the risk environment is conducive to that, because we are comparing the outcomes across the world, right? Now, we don't play in China, I think for good reasons, but like, we're comparing the outcome to a ChatGPT or a SpaceX. We're not comparing to, you know, whoever is also in Germany doing the same thing.
So I have to, because you served it up, I have to raise the point of Capital Markets Union, because of course I've spent 25 years of my life arguing for it, and I got nowhere. And I haven't met a single politician who has not been advocating Capital Markets Union for Europe. And I only, when I left, actually, the then French finance minister, Bruno Le Maire, explained it well to me, because I said, Bruno, if this is all so great, why has nothing happened? He said, well, the problem with Capital Markets Union is people don't like capital, they don't like markets, and they don't like the union. Otherwise, it's a great concept. So the best and most optimistic information I have for you guys, they've started to actually talk about the savings and investment union in Brussels now. So maybe finally something will happen.
Maybe we are in need of a label change, but yeah.
Let me actually take a different tag, if we have. I read in a book about the drug of charismatic leadership, okay? Because I think everybody wants to have a charismatic leader. The problem is eloquence is not a good substitute for competence. And, you know, I
can help with that.
The question that I have for you is, if you accept my two archetypes of leaders and managers, artists and operators. In reality, of course, everybody, you ask people, they all want to be artists, okay? But with all artists, it's disaster, chaos, what have you. You also need operators. If you look at your venture capital career, if you look at the Valley, what kind of managers are you preferring and looking for? Artists or operators?
I think we look for somebody who has an extreme growth mindset, because when you're starting a company, you know, like 8 other engineers, you've never hired a VP of HR, like on and on, the list goes on, right? And our firm was constructed to help people find expertise and networks. But what you want to look for is somebody who has the technical secret, like they know why they're inventing this because they had an experience or they worked on something. They have that secret that they've earned, and then they're incredibly focused on growth. If you take like a Mark Zuckerberg, whether you like Facebook or not, like incredible entrepreneur, started when he was like wet behind the ears, and then has grown every year, and he will keep doing that. And I think that's what we're looking for. And it probably takes a little bit of artistry, like Airbnb is more artistic, although, you know, Brian Chesky went to military school, so he has a great combination. But they're sort of the weighting is different, but you need a little of both. That's why also founding teams are so important, because oftentimes you have someone who has the product secret, and they need to be the CEO, not because we like nerds so much, but our industry changes every 3-5 years, and we are Hunger Games with each other, with our brethren, right? Like you're competing with Microsoft and Amazon and Google Cloud, and it just, you get squashed if you don't pay attention. That's why the technical founder needs to be at the helm. But ideally, they're surrounded with an operator who can make the trains run on time, who does the stuff that the technical founder just isn't so well suited. Like again, Zuckerberg, Sheryl Sandberg is a good, like incredible duo, whether you want to call them an artist and operators. Yeah, I think then in the technical field, Mark would be the artist and she would be the operator.
Well, at the end of the day, it's a question of ego, because everybody in that kind of a position, I would argue everybody in this room, has a strong ego, and those people who actually claim that they have no ego have the biggest. But the real question that everybody has to face is, do you control your ego, or does your ego control you? And that's a defining issue.
Look, I mean, I don't think we have a single entrepreneur who doesn't have ego. Like, if you're going to do something audacious like that and ask people for boatloads of money, like loads of money, you're going to have a commensurate ego, because you have to believe that you can do this, because otherwise it's so hard. Like Sean, I forget his last name, said, it's like chewing glass, and eventually you start liking the taste of your own blood. It's really, really hard to will one of those things into existence. So if you don't have an adequate ego, you're just going to crumble way early. Now, the thing is, what you point out so smartly is like, okay, is it in charge, right? Like, is your id in charge? And even people like Steve Jobs, who had a ginormous ego, had learned after the next experience, like how to actually make sure people want to follow you. If you want to be a leader, you've got to make sure people want to follow you, right? Like, and he kept it in check to some degree, but like, these people have egos.
It's very simple. If nobody is following you, you're not a leader,
exactly.
You're a loner.
Yeah, well put.
But we will surprise Steffi positively. We'll actually end on time.
Can I just say, I really am honored that you did this conversation with me, because he is the most credentialed person and I'm the least credentialed person. So yet somehow we have so much common ground, which is really beautiful.
Thank you very much for doing it.
Thank you. Thank you.
I mean,